She raised her glass to me. Evelyn, she said, the most loyal teammate I know. Everyone applauded. Everyone believed her. But in my hand was a USB. And on that USB, every lie she told behind my back. 1 minute later, the screen lit up. The truth came out. And she never smiled again. Where are you listening from? Drop your city below. And if you've ever trusted the wrong person, hit subscribe. You're not alone. My name is Evelyn Harlow. I'm 42, and I used to believe in loyalty, the kind built between women who've held each other up through every late night and tight deadline. Nina Bellamy was that kind of friend, or so I thought. We met 7 years ago at the launch of a tiny healthcare tech startup. Back then, it was just 10 of us crammed into a co-working space with peeling paint and one bathroom key we all shared. Nina joined the same week I did. Same title, same salary, same dreams. She was quick, sharp with words, always carried a travel-sized lint roller and color-coded sticky notes. We bonded over Thai takeout, inside jokes, and mutual survival of men who interrupted us in meetings. I remember the night she got divorced. She didn't cry much, just sat on my living room floor eating cereal out of the box while we rewatched The Devil Wears Prada for the 3rd time that year. She once told me, if I ever make it big, you're coming with me. No way I'd ever leave you behind. And I believed her. We weren't just work friends. We were sisters in cubicles. 2 women who built something together from the ground up. That's what made it worse. Because betrayal at work hurts. But betrayal from someone who knew your middle name, your dog's birthday, and the exact way you like your coffee, that cuts differently. Our company grew. 10 people became 30, 30 became 75. I became director of strategy. She became head of ops. We sat in boardrooms together, co-presented at investor calls, backed each other up in front of the CEO. People joked we were work wives. We didn't mind. Until the numbers started shifting. Until our roles started overlapping. Until her smiles started getting sharper. But back then, I still thought she had my back. Have you ever trusted someone completely only to wonder later if they ever felt the same? Would you? It started with a headline. The company newsletter went out that Friday. It had a glossy banner that read, Q1 growth driven by bold operational shift. Underneath the photo of our executive team, there was a paragraph praising Nina Bellamy for developing the new cross-departmental model that had streamlined strategy and execution. My model, my roadmap, word for word. I sat in the break room still holding my coffee as the words blurred in front of me. No mention of my name, not even a shared credit. I didn't say anything that day. I just walked back to my desk and opened the slide deck I'd created a month earlier. The structure was identical, down to the color palette. I closed the file. The next week, during our leadership meeting, the CEO asked Nina how she came up with such an elegant solution. She smiled modestly and said, "Well, it just came to me. You know, I've been thinking about alignment for a while." I didn't speak. That silence wasn't weakness. It was the moment I started paying attention. I watched her more closely. Her calendar suddenly included one-on-ones with the CEO twice a week. She stayed late but never invited me to join. We used to finish each other's sentences in meetings. Now she cut me off, finished my ideas before I could explain them, and somehow always turned the spotlight back to her. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe she was just finally being recognized. Maybe this was her time. Maybe I should be happy for her. But then she asked to review a project I'd been working on in private. Something I hadn't even pitched yet. She smiled and said, "I just want to make sure it aligns with the new vision." I didn't sleep that night. Not because of paranoia, but because deep down something in me whispered, "She's not sharing the stage. She's clearing it. Would you speak up or wait for more proof?" The lie came in quiet, like a paper cut you don't feel until it starts to sting. It was a Wednesday morning when HR called me in. Nothing formal, just a quick pulse check. They asked how I was adjusting to the shifting structure, whether I felt aligned with the company's evolving direction. The phrases felt rehearsed. I left the room with a chill in my spine. That afternoon, I stopped by Nina's desk. I smiled, asked, "Everything okay?" She blinked at me too fast, then laughed, said, "Why wouldn't it be? You just seem a little overwhelmed lately. I told HR you probably needed more support." Support, not promotion, not credit, support. That word felt like a backhand across the face. I stared at her. She didn't flinch. And suddenly I saw her clearly, the way she had been planting stories, the way she called it caring when really it was curation. She wasn't just climbing, she was sweeping the steps behind her. I walked away, but I couldn't ignore the shift. The following week, in a strategy sync with the VP, he said, "Let's have Nina lead this one." Evelyn's had a lot on her plate. I hadn't said that. I hadn't missed a deadline. I hadn't dropped a ball. But someone else had already written the script, and I was being edited out. That night, I opened Slack, searched old DMs, searched phrases like alignment strategy, burnout. One thread stood out. Nina messaging the CEO, Evelyn's losing steam. Might be time to rethink org structure. I can absorb her lane if needed. Dated 2 weeks before my meeting with HR. She wasn't just stealing credit. She was reshaping the narrative, framing me as fragile, as expendable. The betrayal was no longer professional, it was surgical. Have you ever been rewritten in someone else's story while they smiled at you like nothing had changed? Would you call it out or wait for the world to read the wrong version? It was almost an accident. I was staying late finalizing a pitch deck for an upcoming board presentation. Nina had left in a rush after drinks with a vendor. She forgot to log out of the shared conference room laptop. I opened the wrong folder. At least I thought I did. A folder named Q2 Backup Final. I clicked just out of curiosity. Inside, I saw something familiar. Too familiar. The title slide read, Growth Alignment Model, authored by Nina Bellamy. But the content, the diagrams, the benchmarks, the transition timeline, they were mine. I checked the metadata. Last edited 3 days ago. By her. My name had been wiped clean. I sat there for a long moment staring at the screen. Not surprised. Just still. Then I saw something else. A subfolder. Internal exec notes. I clicked again, and there it was. An email to our CEO dated last month. Attached is the operational restructure I've been building out. Evelyn gave me feedback on some early drafts, but the full model is my own. Let me know what you think. I closed my eyes. Not only had she stolen the plan, she'd preemptively discredited me, framed it as if I'd just helped polish her work. And it worked. That's what cut deepest. I downloaded the entire folder to a flash drive. Didn't breathe until it finished. Then I sent a single text to myself, a photo of that email header, just in case. I left the office without turning off the lights. Have you ever seen your future with someone else's name on it? What would you do? Confront them right away or wait until the whole room is watching? I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because the moment I had proof, something inside me changed. I stopped feeling stunned. I stopped asking why. I stopped hoping she'd explain. I started planning. For a week I said nothing, showed up to every meeting, smiled when she pitched my model, even clapped when the CEO said, "This is the kind of innovation we reward." She turned to me once right after the applause, said softly, "We make a good team, don't we?" I nodded, didn't blink. Behind the scenes, I met with someone in IT quietly after hours, asked if they could help me gather metadata email logs, timestamps. Not to accuse, just to reconcile project ownership for an upcoming audit. They didn't ask questions, just handed me a zipped folder 2 days later. Then I emailed the events team, confirmed my slot for the company gala's closing speech. It was supposed to be Nina's moment, her official announcement as VP of Strategy. They asked if I was sure. I said yes. I even picked the flowers for her table centerpiece, white calla lilies, her favorite. I booked a hair appointment, bought a new navy dress, and packed the flash drive into a slim silver case that fit perfectly into my clutch. Some people fight fire with fire, but I'd learned something better. You don't need to raise your voice when the truth is loud enough. Would you wait? Would you watch the person who betrayed you take the stage just so you could take it back the night of the gala? The ballroom shimmered with gold light and false promises. Everyone wore black tie. I wore quiet. My heels clicked against the marble floor with the rhythm of something ending. Nina looked radiant hair, swept up smile camera ready. People passed her flutes of champagne and words like visionary and future leader. She kissed cheeks, tossed compliments like confetti. No one saw the silver flash drive in my hand, tucked beside my phone, close to my pulse. I kept thinking about all the times I had her back. When she forgot her slides and I printed them. When she panicked before a meeting and I covered for her. When she broke down after her mother's diagnosis and I stayed on the phone till 2 a.m. Friendship isn't measured in big moments. It's in the details. And she'd rewritten every one of ours. As the host called my name, I walked toward the stage not as a victim, not even as a survivor, but as someone who finally saw things clearly. This wasn't revenge. This was alignment. Her lies had taken my credit, my confidence, my place in the room, but not tonight. I took the mic, looked out into a sea of faces who didn't yet know what was coming, and I said I wasn't supposed to speak tonight. But sometimes silence feels like complicity. Would you stop there, or would you tell your story? While they were all still listening the week before the gala, I invited Nina to dinner. Not at the office, not in public, just us, like old times. She agreed instantly, said she missed our one-on-one catch-ups, that she wanted to check in before the big announcement. I chose a quiet rooftop bistro with soft lighting and no place to hide. She arrived in white silk, a color that felt ironic now. We ordered wine. She talked about her speech, about how the new title came with a seat on the advisory board and a bonus that would finally make things feel worth it. I nodded, sipping slowly. She still called me Ev. Still leaned in like we were co-conspirators. Part of me wanted to ask her straight out why. Why rewrite me out of my own work? Why frame me to HR? Why gut what we built together? But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "How do you want to be remembered here?" She blinked, caught off guard, then smiled. All I ever wanted was to lead well, to build something that mattered. I smiled too, because now I knew how to make that happen. The next morning, I emailed the events coordinator, confirmed that the projector system could handle video and screen share from external files. Then I sent a note to HR. I'll be speaking briefly at the gala, just a few words of thanks. No one questioned it. Nina was still the headliner, still the rising star. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Because the only thing better than exposing a lie is letting the liar build their own stage first. Would you wait for the perfect moment? Or would you strike when no one's looking? The day of the gala, I arrived early. Not to socialize, but to test the system. The ballroom was still empty, just tech crew moving cables and a faint smell of fresh flowers. I approached the AV lead, slipped him a sealed envelope with a USB inside. "This goes in right after I speak," I said. "No questions." He nodded, didn't even blink. I'd labeled the file Final Thank You Video .mp4. Professional, neutral, nothing to raise alarm. After that, I walked through the space. The seating chart had Nina front and center, her name in gold foil on a folded place card. Right beside the CEO, right beside me. I placed her gift on her seat, a framed photo of the two of us from our early days in the company. The caption read, "To everything we built together." I meant every word, just not in the way she thought. Later, I changed into my navy gown, pinned my badge with the speaker's name, fixed my lipstick. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a woman seeking revenge. I saw someone reclaiming authorship of her story, of her worth, of her silence. As the ballroom filled with voices, music, laughter, I slipped into character. I greeted Nina with a hug, said she looked beautiful, held her hand longer than necessary. She beamed. "Are you ready for your little toast?" she asked. I nodded. "Are you ready for yours?" She laughed, completely unaware. That's the thing about lies, they make people bold. But the truth walks in quietly and changes everything. Would you smile to their face knowing what's about to hit them? Or would your hand shake before the lights go out? They dim the lights after dessert. The jazz band faded. The host tapped the mic. And now a few words from someone we all know and deeply admire, Evelyn Harlow. Applause rose. Smiles turned toward me. Even Nina clapped, nodding like she'd let me borrow her spotlight. I stood slowly. My heels didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. "Thank you," I began. "It's been a privilege to grow with this company and to build something that meant more than just profit or titles." I glanced at Nina. She was still smiling. There's been a lot of talk lately about leadership, who earns it, who deserves it, and who stands behind the ideas that move us forward. A flicker in her eyes. I continued. "Tonight I won't take long. I just want to show you all a small video about the power of collaboration." I turned toward the AV booth, nodded. The screen came to life. First, a slide: strategic growth framework. Draft 1. Evelyn Harlow. Then email threads, timestamps, metadata, a voice recording Nina's telling the CEO, "Evelyn's burned out. I've got a version she won't fight." Gasps. Silence. One woman dropped her fork. I didn't look at Nina. I didn't need to. The screen went black. And then it was just me again. "Some of us build in silence," I said. But tonight I wanted the truth to be louder than applause. And I walked off stage. No drama, no rage. Just a room so quiet you could hear reputations collapse. Would you have done it? Would you have said nothing or shown them everything? For a moment, no one moved. The lights stayed low. The silence was almost sacred. Then someone whispered, "Was that real?" Another voice, sharper. "Oh my God." All around me, people turned, eyes darting between the dark screen and the woman sitting beside the CEO. Nina didn't say a word. Her smile was frozen, that glossy, photo-ready grin, now cracked like old paint. She reached for her water glass, but her hand trembled. And when she looked at me, there was nothing left of the woman who'd once eaten cereal on my floor. Only calculation. And something close to fear. The CEO cleared his throat, tried to recover. Well, clearly some internal matters need reviewing. Someone coughed. Chairs shifted. A few execs pulled out their phones. I walked back to my seat. Calm, controlled. I didn't say a word to her. She leaned in anyway. Low voice, sharp. "What the hell was that?" I looked at her. Finally. "My version of collaboration," I said. "And transparency." She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. A server flinched. "I need to speak to HR," she snapped. But they were already walking toward her, not with clipboards, but with tight expressions and quiet urgency. People watched her go. No one followed. I stayed seated, sipped the wine I'd barely touched, let it settle in, because that was the moment I realized I didn't need to win. I just needed them to see. Her downfall wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was written in emails and data trails, in the stillness of a room that had just watched a crown dissolve. Would you have stayed seated or walked out with her? What does justice look like when it's dressed in silence? After Nina left the ballroom, people started talking in whispers. At first, then in hushed clusters near the bar by the hallway on the outdoor terrace. Some avoided my eyes. Others came by and placed a hand on my shoulder. No words, just contact, as if to say, "We saw it. We can't unsee it." The head of HR returned about 15 minutes later. Expression unreadable. She nodded toward me. "We'll be scheduling a meeting first thing Monday morning," she said. "In the meantime, please keep any documents you shared secure." I already had. The flash drive was in my coat pocket, and a backup lived in a cloud folder under a password no one could guess. The CEO didn't look at me as he left, but I saw the way his jaw clenched, the way his assistant avoided eye contact. He'd known, or at least suspected, but Nina made it easy to look the other way until someone made it impossible. And now impossible had arrived in 1080p resolution on a 12-foot screen in front of 70 executives and senior staff. That weekend, I didn't check my inbox, didn't answer calls. I took long walks, made tea, slept with the windows cracked open. On Monday morning, Nina's name was no longer listed on our internal org chart. By Tuesday, an internal memo circulated: leadership transition underway. A full audit is being conducted regarding Q1, Q2 operations. No names, no apologies, but everyone knew. They always do. On Friday, I received a formal promotion offer with back pay and a private apology from the CEO himself. I declined both. I didn't want a title given in hindsight. I didn't need a check to validate my name on the work I'd built. Instead, I handed in my notice. 2 weeks clean, no drama, no farewell email, just a quiet exit the same way I'd always worked: diligent, precise, and without needing anyone's permission. Would you have stayed for the title, taken the win after the war? Or would you have left knowing the most powerful thing in the room wasn't the role? It was the truth. I didn't send a farewell email, didn't gather my things in a box, didn't take the company mug. I just left. 2 weeks passed, no goodbye drinks, no slideshow, no "we'll miss you," and I was okay with that, because I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I was leaving with my name, with my dignity, with every piece of truth they'd once tried to erase. They offered to keep me, offered back pay, a title, even a quiet raise. I declined, not because I was bitter, but because I'd learned something deeper. Validation given too late is just damage control. I started walking each morning, 5 a.m., before the noise, before email, before guilt had a chance to speak. The first few weeks felt strange, like walking out of a storm into a room that was too still. But stillness isn't silence, it's space, and I needed it. I took calls from former colleagues. Some were curious, some were apologetic. A few quietly said, "I wish I'd seen it sooner." One of them told me Nina had tried to call a meeting to clear the air, but HR had already launched a formal audit. The CEO had gone into full damage control mode. Suddenly, everything she touched was being reviewed. Nothing she said was trusted without proof. Funny how fast the ground shifts when you no longer control the story. I started journaling again. Not for anyone else, just for me. 1 page a day, no edits. And then one night over dinner with a friend from another firm, she said, "Have you ever thought about consulting?" There are a lot of women out there who don't realize they're being erased until it's too late. That stuck with me. 2 months later, I launched a small consultancy. No investors, no flashy office. Just a website and a promise. We help women stay visible in rooms where people try to unsee them. And they came. Quietly at first. Emails signed only with initials. Voices that cracked on Zoom. They told me stories like mine. Some worse, some quieter, but all real. And I listened. Because I know what it feels like to build something from the ground up and watch someone else take the mic. I know what it means to be called emotional when you're just accurate. To be told, "It's just business," as if that makes theft acceptable. One day, I bumped into an old colleague at a networking event. He'd been one of Nina's biggest fans. He looked at me, hesitated, then said, "You were right. I didn't want to believe it back then. But you were always the one holding it all together." I smiled. Didn't say thank you, didn't say I told you so, just nodded and walked on. Because closure doesn't always come in applause. Sometimes it comes in stillness. In waking up and knowing you didn't disappear, you chose to walk out of the frame. Some people think revenge is about making others pay. But for me, it was about no longer paying the price for someone else's lies. And now I live louder without raising my voice. If you've ever watched someone steal your credit, your work, your place at the table, just know this. You are not invisible. You are not replaceable. And your silence, it's not weakness, it's potential energy, waiting to speak. Have you ever been erased at work? Had to fight to reclaim what was always yours? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening. And if this story felt like your own, subscribe. There's more truth coming. It's been 6 months now. Sometimes I still think about the night of the gala, not the moment the video played, but the silence after. That silence changed everything. One of Nina's former assistants reached out last week. She'd taken another job, but just wanted to say, "Thank you for doing what so many of us couldn't." I didn't know how to respond, but her message stayed with me. Because the truth is, not everyone gets to leave clean. Not everyone can speak without fear of losing a paycheck or a visa or their health insurance. Some of us stay quiet because survival demands it, and I'll never judge that. But if I had the chance to speak with no one silencing me this time, then I had to take it. For them, for me, I still believe in ambition, in women leading, in lifting each other up. But now I've learned to ask, is it elevation or extraction? I no longer romanticize loyalty. I look for alignment. I listen for character in the quiet moments, in how someone speaks when no one's watching. Healing doesn't come from burning bridges. It comes from building better ones, even if you walk across them alone. If you're listening to this and you've been made to feel invisible, if someone's rewritten your story, stolen your spotlight, or made you question your own worth, I want you to know you don't need a stage to matter. You don't need their credit to claim your power. You already have it. They just hoped you'd forget. Don't. Have you ever trusted someone at work only to realize they were building their future on your silence? Have you ever had your name erased from something you created? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story reminded you of a moment you were forced to stay quiet, you're not alone, not anymore. Subscribe for more stories like this, because sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply being heard.